Hello, the Rocket, or Stevenson's Rocket, or as you may know me if you've watched the TV show, Stephen. And this is Edward, over to my right, but to the left for you, and Neil, who's on my left, but it's on the right for you. Anyways, this is the Adventures of Sodor, and we have decided to start the series off with a bit of a background on the first three, or kind of four, railways. However, we will begin our stories with Neil, who, well, he knows a lot about the first three railways on the island, don't you, Neil? I do, Stephen. Let's begin with the first railway on the island, the railroad. Or, as you may know, which might be a big shocker for you if you didn't know this already, the Scarlet Railway. This used to be a line that ran from Wardville, I'm pretty sure, to Ballydrail. It was usually used for minerals, and then when they began to develop the line more for the Scarlet line, the location Scarlet, not to get mixed up with the station or engine, have no more minerals, so they decided to make it a proper railway. And when Scarlet and Mainland survived, the stations were named after them, and Scarlet, for being the number one, was renamed, had the railway renamed in his honours as being called to his now known name as the Scarlet Railway. The next railway was the Sodor Mainland Railway. It was run by 3 engines: me, the number 2, Neil, Harold, the number 1, and Jeremy, the number 3. And yes, when Harold the helicopter and Jeremy the plane were named after these 2 engines in their honour. However, we ran the line. We were not exactly owned by our actual. Well, weren't owned by people on Sodor. We were actually owned by the Mainland. We just most of our line ran on Sodor, so technically we weren't Sodor engines. However, we did still run on the line, and it was considered that we were Sodor engines once we were brought to be put in the Sodor Museum, which eventually some of us were written out of. However, we did run the line quite well, too. We were quite boxy on our designs, but we did not mind about that. We just enjoyed the line and the work, and that's how it all was, and we just enjoyed the time. And then we get over to, well, wait, before we get into that railway, here's how my brothers looked like. This was Gerald. He was a very smart engine, I will say. And here's Jeremy. And he said Jerry there. And, well, he was also a good-looking engine. Green and 3 really do go well with number 3 engines, in my opinion. Now we can finally get to the railway I was talking about. The Wellsworth and Suddery Railway. Now, what is there to say about this railway? Despite it being one of the oldest still running railways on the island, you may be a bit confused about that, and may be thinking, of course it's not running. Well, the line of its use is still running. The actual railway isn't. The line is actually now Edward's branch line. And there were actually 5 engines that ran it, so you will be forgiven into thinking it was the 4060 engines as said in the railway series. However, these engines were mostly custom built. These engines were the Wellsworth and Suddery number 1s, the Wellsworth and Suddery Class 0, Joeseph, the Wellsworth and Suddery's Class O, the Wellsworth and Suddery's Class 1, Jacob, and he was the number 2, but he looks more familiar to a Ginty or 3A than he was the basis for it. Then we have Gerald, who is a GWR 2721 class. Well, he was the basis for it, and he was the Wellsworth and Suddery class 02. Well, class 2. Now, the original number 4 was actually an 04, though he was the Wellsworth and Suddery's class 03, and it was its number 4. This engine was named Jackson. You see, this engine was custom built and was never intended to have a class made for him, due to how much of a, well, hard time it was. You see, there was many key components not put in his design, like splashers, and they are things that go over the running boards, and they have holes into them, which will allow the wheels to freely turn with more space without having to damage any of their parts, if you didn't know what they were, by the way. However, his wheelbase was actually would eventually be edited for Percy's railways, and the firebox would eventually become the basis for the linear A1 and A3. However, yes, he was not very good. His cab and firebox was a bit too heavy, so he'd often lift off the rails a little bit, causing him to only have his back wheels properly on the rails, and well, he would derail on turns. It got so bad that he was eventually sold off. We don't know where he went, but the fourth 06 that actually went on the railway was brought to the railway in 1900, and he was a terrier locomotive. His name was King of Brendam. He was built there, so he was named that. This was well before Brendam actually had a dock. So, well, it did have a dock, but it was not the best on suits. It was not the most suited, so it was rarely ever used, and there was never any rails there. So he was built there, but then was taken over to the lines. So yes, however, he did prove to be a much better engine than Jackson, but Jackson, we still don't know what happened to him. However, we do know where the rest of the Wellsworth and Suddery engines went. They went into the Sodor Museum, where they can still be seen. And that's the history of the older railways. Thank you, Neil. You must be feeling a bit worn out after that. I am. I need a rest after all this talking. Okay, Neil, calm down. Anyways, that's the first part of today's history on the island of Sodor. Next time we might go over and visit the Scarlet Railway and see what they have to say. Now, we will be expecting more from Jackson, Hamills, Neil, Jeremy, King of Brendam, was it? Yes, it was. Now give me a rest. Okay, Neil, just calm down. Anyways, and King of Brendam, Joeseph, Jacob, what was his name? Do you mean Gerald? Yes, Gerald. And we'll hopefully learn more about them in a future series. And I need a rest on my voice. Take a rest, Neil. Thank you. Anyways, thank you for watching this first part of the history of the northwest of the Sodors Railways. I am the Rocket. This was Edward. Here, and Neil will edit and speak. So hopefully you can speak in the next episode. But we'd like to thank you all for watching this video, for this series, and hopefully we can catch up to the present day in a couple of episodes time as we finish with this history episode. Mill episodes. This was mainly focused for the Wellsworth and Suddery Railway, which is why most of it was talked about. They're probably the most mysterious railways on Sodor, isn't that right, Neil? Don't talk to me, at least not right now, otherwise I'm just going to tell you in puff signals. Okay, Neil, take a rest. Anyways, this is me, Rocket aka Stephen, and me would like to thank you for this new series. I'm watching it for this unusual start to the series. It's going to be taking place in present day. Thank you for watching, and we'll hope to see you next time. So yes, goodbye.